YouTube and hello Ninth Age community. This is Charles with Evershade Gaming and I've got another Ninth Age battle report. This is a 5,000 point game between Empire of Sonnstahl and Sylvan Elves using the Giant Supplement. So we played Dawn Assault and we played Breakthrough as our secondary objective. I've just been putting the list in the description, so I'm going to continue to do that until people tell me not to. I have two prelates in this army, and they have their blessings. And I have a wizard master using a cosmology, and he also has a magical heirloom. So from his magical heirloom, he took Quicksilver Lash. Otherwise, from cosmology, he's got Ice and Fire, Perception of Strength, Unity and Divergence, and Touch of the Heart. I've also got that bound Perception of Strength on his Arcane Engine. And here are our giants. So that's my giant on the left and my opponent's giant on the right. Impressively, my giant, my friend printed out that giant with his 3D printer. I think the day before when I told him like, hey, like we should try giants again, and he was like, okay, and he made a whole giant. And I was like, that's awesome. He's even got a little crossbow. It's awesome. I love it. So, I was able to pick table sides, so my opponent dropped for turn 1. As you can see, I was able to give him the side with the building in the middle of the deployment, which I think he did a good job deploying around. And it did give him a hill, but I figured it was pretty far back hill, so it shouldn't be too impactful. So starting on my opponent's right, and we're going to go left, he's got 15 Dryads with a champion. He's got 8 Sentinels. He's got 5 Thicket Beasts with a Thicket Shepherd, who does have the Oaken Crown. He's got an Eagle hiding behind the building. He has a Tree Father in front of his Giant. His Giant is armed with the Sapling Bow upgrade. So it's got poison attacks, and it's got a bow that has an area attack of, I guess, 1/5. That is Strength 3, bracket 6, AP 3, brackets AP 10. So it's a strong bolt thrower. It doesn't have multi-wounds, but it is a quick-fire giant, so and he can march, and he's got feint flight, so he's not too bad. Then he's got 26 Dryads with a Dryad Ancient. He's got 11 Sylvan Archers with a Druid Adept. He's got a Eagle King Sylvan Elf Prince who has Titanic Might on his Sylvan Blades. He's got the Talisman of Shielding. He's got the Solemn Fusion, and I want to say he's got a Magical Heirloom. And he's got 15 Forest Rangers who have the upgrade to give them Vanguard and +1 advance, and he's got 5 Heath Hunters. And as you can see, I'm deployed on this side of the field, going from my right to the left. I've got 3 Knights of Sun Griffin. They have lances and a musician. I've got my Inquisitor, who's got the Blessed Inscriptions on paired weapons, and he's got silver shots, and he's got Basalt Infusion. I've got 28 Flagellants with a Prelate in there, who's got the Mithril armor for a 2-up armor save on foot, and he's got a Grail weapon. I've got 20 crossbows with a champion with a long rifle. Then I have 43 heavy infantry in the middle there with both my BSB, who's a Marshal. He's got a 1-up armor save with the Alchemist Alloy and the Will's Ward, and he's got the Death Warrant and a Lucky Charm. And I've got a Prelate who's got a 1-up armor save with the Imperial Seal armor. He's also got a Grey weapon, and I think he might have something else, but I can't remember offhand. I've got my Wizard Master on his cart behind the heavy infantry of the Halberds. The Halberds do have I feel like they have a banner, but I can't recall it right now. I got the Giant right there. The Giant does have a Giant repeater. I wanted to give it a try since it lost Unwieldy in the last update. I've got 15 more crossbows with a champion with a long rifle. I've got my Steam Tank. I've got 5 Riders, and behind the 5 Riders, got 5 Electoral Cavalry with a Musician and Grey weapons. I vanguard my cavalry over because my opponent actually had just previously scouted some sentinels on the side of the board, and I kind of figured that these riders would be dead turn one, so I wanted to maybe at least give them a chance to be around if they have BSB and general discipline. My opponent vanguards his hunters up, and as you can see, he also has his sentinels down right there. And then he also vanguards his rangers up to that wall. And we go for Sylvan Elves turn one. And this is after movement. So on the left, you can see he pretty much just brings up his shooting to and flick some damage on the ranger or the riders. The rangers just hold themselves behind the wall. The Eagle King moves up. The Dryads move on up to the forest. The Tree Father moves past the forest, but close enough so that he can move it. He's got his giant on the hill to shoot his bow, and he's moved up his archers, and his thicket beasts to the right of the building move up, and his dryads get in that forest. So everything pretty much moves up except maybe that eagle behind the building. This is a picture of my opponent's spells. So he's got Ice and Fire and Perception of Strength and Forest Embrace with he's got the magical heirloom on this druid. And on his Dryad Ancient, he's got Scrying and the Stars Align from Divination. So during the magic phase, my opponent was able to get Scrying on his Eagle King. That was the first spell he cast. And then he got Perception of Strength off on the Rangers. And then I figured, well, nothing's going to try charging them. And then we go into the shooting phase. I want to say that this is from the archers behind the dryads. And then this is the Heath Hunters. And I've passed my discipline check at this point. And then debating what to do, my opponent decides just to finish off the riders. So he actually does use his sentinels instead of maybe shooting at my giant. And he gets rid of the rangers. We pass all of our discipline checks, so that's good. And I want to say that the sentinels on the right shot at the Knights of the Sun Griffin, but couldn't do a wound. So this is going into Empire of Sonnstahl turn one. I didn't really have a ton of movement to do. On the right, I wanted to get my knights behind the wall, sort of to be a deterrent to him moving any more forward. I really want the Flagellants to do the heavy lifting on that side of the field. I moved my Inquisitor on the other side of the Flagellants so that he could shoot his pistol 12 inches away at the Inquisitor. Or the Inquisitor shooting at the Tree Father. He's just 12 inches away, so he can shoot his silver shots over there. I put Radiant Fire on the light infantry, and I just put Brace for Impact on my heavy infantry. My giant is not entirely sure where he's going to shoot at. Maybe just at the sentinels. The crossbows are probably going to shoot the sentinels too. And the steam tank moved up to try and get within range to maybe use its breath weapon on the sentinels too, but also not too worried about too much over there, keeping the rangers in the front. The rangers could put some wounds on the steam tank, but I don't think they can kill it in one round. I get Flux Card 1 on my first turn. And I save a Veil token because I've got 4 channels in this army. It's awesome. I toss Ice and Fire, and it's the most pathetic Ice and Fire you've ever seen. I think I got 3 hits. I did 1 wound. I killed 1 ranger. So that was sad. And that was all I got for the magic phase. So then we go into shooting, and kind of a big whiff too. I don't have a ton of shooting, but I do have a decent amount of light infantry. So my 15 crossbows shot at the sentinels and killed 3, which I was relatively pleased with. The giant repeater had a big whiff. It rolled 116, which is probably the worst roll you could possibly get, even though you get a decent amount of shots. They just can't hit anything, and I already decided I wanted to shoot the sentinels, so they just didn't hit and wound with anything. And the crossbows and the Inquisitor all shot at the Tree Father, but they could not either hit or wound, so they don't really do anything to him. So going into Sylvan Elves turn 2. My opponent declares a charge on the Giant, who holds against the Eagle King. And he also declared a charge on the crossbows with his rangers. He actually only needed a 7. And I really wanted to flee, but I was worried about his Heath Hunters being able to push the crossbows off. So I decided just to take the risk, stand and shoot. I did 1 wound miraculously, past the hardcover with the crossbows, and then uh, they failed, which was great. So I got very fortunate there, actually. And this is going into, or this is the rest of my movement for Empire of Sonnstahl, or sorry, Sylvan Elves, turn 2. He moves up. He moved up the forest the last turn. I don't know if I captured that very well. With his Tree Father's tree singing ability, the Tree Father moves over a little bit so that if something charges him, they can't really go anywhere because there's a building there. I thought that was a great move by my opponent. The Heath Hunters move up to threaten those Electoral Cavalry. They are, scoring units, so if he can get rid of them, he doesn't have to worry about me breaking through with them. And yeah, he just sort of ignores the the steam tank this turn. And yeah, I mean he's being cautious in the middle. We've got a couple big combat blocks. He's got an advantage with his Eagle King into the Giant. That's going to go well for him. I'm thinking I'm going to be able to just be steadfast if I don't die. So my opponent gets Ice and Fire off on my Flagellants over here. And it does 4 wounds. Then the Sylvan Sentinel shoot, and they kill 1 Flagellant. In the combat, the Giant receives 4 wounds, and he gives 1 back to the Eagle King, and we stick, so not too bad. And this is what it looks like at the end of Sylvan Elves turn 2. And this is going into Empire of Sonnstahl turn 1. So at the start Empire of Sonnstahl turn 2, the Electoral Cavalry charge the Heath Hunters, who flee. I was debating about setting my steam tank back, and I didn't love the fact that it was going to block the crossbows from doing anything this turn. And I also wanted to do something about the Rangers that are right in front of me. The Rangers are actually in the flank of the heavy infantry, but I didn't like that it would bring me pretty much into that forest and also really close to everything so that he could get, multiple charges off with his Dryads and his Giant in his turn. So what I decided to do was actually charge the flank of the Eagle King with my crossbows, since they weren't going to be able to shoot at much anyway, and put the steam tank into the flank of the Rangers, who now that they've charged, they are in the steam tank's flank. And I tried to charge the Flagellants on the right into the flank of his Dryads. I figured if I could get there, then I can tie them up, and I can very likely, probably not win that grind in the end, perhaps, maybe. But at the very least, get my heavy infantry into there so they could finish up the Dryads. And I still have the Inquisitor on that side of the field who can pretty much probably hold down the Tree Father or the Thicket Beasts. So the steam tank makes it in. The Electoral Cavalry fail and actually take a DT for the forest. The light infantry can't fail; they're inches away. And the Flagellants fail. And they also fail kind of spectacularly. They needed a 9 on the dice, and they rolled an 8, which wheeled them quite a bit. Way too much, actually. So that I had to take drastic steps with my Inquisitor, as you can see, who goes up to actually chaff the Thicket Beasts so that they can't get in the flank of the Flagellants, because if that happens, the Thicket Beasts not only win that combat, but also I don't really get a lot of mileage out of the Flagellants and their hatred. The Tree Father cannot see the Inquisitor currently, too. I was able to get past his arc sight. And other than that, we just sort of, I'm just sort of trying to hold down. I've got my, heavy infantry. They really didn't have to go forward too much. I didn't really want to get too close and let him get multiple charges off. In addition, I definitely didn't feel like I needed more than one combat at this point, since I already had the steam tank combat and the giant combat and the light infantry combat, and I only have so much magic. So I get Flux card 2, unfortunately. Save 1 Veil token. Toss an Ice and Fire to pull some dice, but my opponent lets it go. It does kill, I think, 4 Dryads, which is nice. Can't complain there. I throw Perceptionist Strength on his Eagle King, mostly because it actually does help quite a bit with the Eagle, and it even helps with the Strength 7 guy to go to 6 so that he's only on 3s. And I tried to, I was debating about doing Touch of the Heart on the Giant, but I ended up tossing it at the Steam Tank, which I ended up failing that cast, and my opponent stopped everything else. Going to the shooting phase, nothing happens. Going to combat, he just barely manages to kill the giant. He hit okay, and then he only did 2 wounds with his prince, and his eagle attacked, and it hit once, and it wounded once, and I actually had a 6 of armor save because it lost its 1 pip of AP, but I couldn't make that armor save. So the giant dies. This guy still loses combat by, I think, at least 2, and he sticks. So I was a little bit sad about that because if that giant could have just held on, not only would it walloped on the prince, been able to do a lot of damage to him, but in addition, probably would have broken him from combat, considering with the fear and with even doing like 1 more wound, that's a lot of combat res. Unfortunately, he's now going to just wall up on these light infantry, but that was also kind of taken in consideration of if the giant dies, this unit can hold him up for at least probably 3 turns. The steam tank also goes in the Rangers, and kind of pitiful. Like, very low number of grinds. Pretty sad. I also, I don't know if you noticed, looking at the steam tank, there's 3 skulls on top of its hatch. It took 3 DTs going over that wall, which definitely when I was originally planning that, I did not think about that wall. And then my opponent's like, "Are you going to take those DTs?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah. Let me roll them. 1, 1, 2." And I was like, okay, that is not great. So unfortunately, my steam tank is actually a bit of a precarious position now because these guys are decent at killing the steam tank, and they are, they passed their reform check, and now I'm feeling like a bit of a fool. So on Sylvan Elves turn 3, the Tree Father comes into the Flagellants, and these guys continue to flee, which is nice. And this is the rest of my opponent's movement phase. So he decides not to charge the Thick Beasts, mostly, I think, out of just eternal fear of this Inquisitor and what he can do, which I do roll hot with him, and Thick Beasts are not a terrible target for him, even though they do have a higher toughness that gives him a little bit of more option to roll those lethal strikes. And they don't really bring in a ton of combat res. Even if I just kill 1 Thicket Beast, I mean, he's pretty much out of he only has 3 combat res coming into me if I don't kill anything. And as you can see, the Dryads move up pretty aggressively. They're kind of coming now to fight with the heavy infantry, and this is where we're at. My opponent fails Forest Embrace on 2 dice, trying to get the 7 up. So that was helpful. That took out some dice in his magic phase. He does get Perception and Strength off. This was really hard. I wanted to stop this so bad, but I decided to let it go because I figured I was doing the math in my head and I should survive with a single wound, even with Perception and Strength. And I stopped his divination spells because I felt like if I was going to beat the Dryads with my heavy infantry, they could not receive a buff. Yeah, so I stop Stars Align. I say no to that. And then we go into the shooting phase. The archers Not the Sentinels shoot at the Electoral Cavalry. They take a wound, but I passed my panic test, so it was good. I issue a duel in combat with my champion in this light infantry unit, and he dies in probably a spectacular fashion. But that helps. This gives this unit a whole round of combat just to tie this Eagle King up. And I get quite fortunate over here, where he only does 2 wounds. He hit and he wounded pretty poorly. However, as you can see, I only have killed, I think, 3. I'm just rolling so low for my grinds. It's sad. Over here, I do 7 wounds, and he just armor saves and aegis saves all but 1. So a bit disappointed over there. I was thinking this would be the turn in which we could do at least. I was hoping for maybe like 3 wounds, and then we could just grind this guy to death over a couple more turns. But now I'm kind of worried he might outlast this unit, which would be a great use of this Tree Father for sure. So, Empire of Sonnstahl turn 3, I decide this is the turn. I'm going to go for it. I bring my heavy infantry into the Dryads. I lose a ton of guys going through that forest. And I also decide that I want to charge my Wizard Master into the Rangers. He does have a champion, so he's going to issue a duel. But even getting rid of those 3 attacks increases the likelihood that this team tank survives. And yeah. Oh, and I also bring my Inquisitor into the Thick of Beasts, because I figure with the charge, I should have a good time just being able to really wallop on these guys. So I get Flux card 8. I get Perception of Strength off on the Dryads to reduce their strength, because I just, the Strength 4 is pretty brutal. They are going for first before my whole unit. And with 4 dice, I miscast, I get Unity Divergence off. I rolled 3 3s. It is Flux card number 8, so it's a -1 modifier, and I only rolled 4, so I take 2 hits, and then I take a wound from it, as you can see on my Wizard Master. And I almost get Touch of the Heart off on the Steam Tank. I rolled a very spicy roll, a 14 on 3 dice, but my opponent just barely catches me with that 14 too. So, in the shooting phase, my light infantry can see the eagle being large. They shoot. They have a lot of modifiers, but they actually end up putting enough wounds on it to kill it, and it panics the giant. So that was great. So he's actually fleeing right now. The both archer units pass their panic tests, and combat goes okay, I would say. I do 8 wounds to him. He does 4. He actually does another wound, I think, or 2. He forgot about his Dryad Ancient. We ended up breaking them, the Dryads, and they flee to go 7. We go 9, and we get to go into the Archers. So I liked that. This way I can get rid of all his magic, and it's his turn next, and he doesn't have a counter charge since that giant is fleeing. The Wizard Master easily kills the champion in a duel with his impact hits. And thankfully, he's not able to do another wound on the Steam Tank. And we're able to kill the rest of the Rangers finally. Only took 3 rounds of combat and another charge with my Wizard Master. My Wizard Master does decide to overrun. He takes another wound going over the wall, which I didn't want to do, but I also wanted to be farther away from the Eagle King because we fought this combat first this turn, and am pretty sure, unless my opponent rolls spectacularly terrible, that he's going to kill more than 3 models. We're not going to have a rank, and we're going to break. So the Steam Tank just turns around for when that happens. The Steam Tank's just going to shoot its cannon at that eagle. It can't even really move anywhere. It's on a wall because that was a terrible move by me earlier in the game. But this is where we're at. We go into this combat, and my opponent issues a duel with his champion since he does not want me picking on his Thicket Beast or his Thicket Shepherd. He gets killed by me. I think I do 4 wounds to him. with the multi wounds, and actually rolled fives. He failed his armor saves, and then he failed his Aegis saves. So that was spectacular. So kill the champion, win combat, but he holds. He's stubborn. In this combat, as you can see, the Tree Father is doing great. He's just doing some work on these flagellants. They do another wound to him, but yeah, it's looking tough at this point. I think next turn could be it. On Sylvan Elves, turn 4, my opponent's giant rallies. My opponent gets the Forest Embrace off. And then we go into combat, and I don't know what was the difference between this turn, but these guys end up putting... they do the rest of the wounds. I want to say the unit ends up doing 2 more or maybe 3 more, and the Prelate does 2 wounds himself. So, yeah, they kind of rolled it up and took out the Tree Father. So that was great. They're greatly diminished, unfortunately, but this is where we're at. They just reform like that. And this was a shocking surprise. So, in this round of combat, the Thicket Shepherd and the Inquisitor get into a duel. And the Inquisitor goes, and he hits 3 times, and he wounds 2 times. But he only wounds on 5s. So, it's only AP 1, no lethal strike. So, my opponent rolls his armor saves, and he fails them. I'm thinking, okay, great. This is what the Inquisitor's made for. He's not gonna get through. These Aegis saves are not gonna work. So my opponent rolls his Aegis saves, 5 and a 6. Okay, that's okay. He passed both. I mean, he's got to reroll them. Rolls his Aegis save again, 5 and a 6. So this Thicket Shepherd just shrugs off the Inquisitor. He goes back and he puts 2 wounds on him. So now I've lost combat by 3, and I can't stick. So I flee. He goes 2 inches, and I think I go 12 or something like that. So the Inquisitor just gets on out of there, and the Thicket, beasts are just chilling right there. But yeah, that BSB definitely has the luck of the forest, because that was some incredible rolling. Yeah, wow. So yeah, in this combat over here, he does 4 wounds to me, which is just enough. He almost didn't do it. I think he needed the stomp to do the last wound. So he almost gave me another round here, but actually this ends up, I think, working in my favor, so now that the cannon can shoot him. And this is going into Empire of Sonnstahl, turn 4. So the Wizard Master at the top charges the Sentinels. Just let's get rid of them. I have 1 Electoral Cavalry left, who charges the Heath Hunters. I want to say I had 3, and he stand and shot and he killed 2. So that was a bit of a bummer. I was hoping to at least get 2 in there. And then I put the heavy infantry into the Giant, thinking we'll get rid of him. There were 2 archers left at the end of that combat. We killed the wizard, and they're going to get shot by the crossbows right there in front of the runes now. The knights actually attempt to charge the thicket beasts behind the wall. They fail it. They only go a couple inches. So I decide to chaff with my Prelate and then just reposition my Flagellants and my Inquisitor rallies. So we're ready for whatever happens with that Prelate, and we're going to get rid of this Giant. We're going to get rid of these Sentinels, and I don't know what we're going to do by the Sentinels by the building, but that's the game plan. Able to get the Bound Perception and Strength off in the heavy infantry, which I think kind of really seals this Giant's fate this turn. We get Touch the Heart off on the Steam Tank so that it can actually maybe move off the wall and not just die. And then we shoot with the crossbows, and they do get rid of those 2 remaining archers, so that was nice just to nab up, make sure I got those points. And the cannon in the Steam Tank shoots, and baby, it scores, and it kills Eagle King Prince. Beautiful. Mwah. Love the Steam Tank. So we fight this combat with the Sentinels. The Wizard Master kind of barely kills these guys. I want to say he does 1 wound. They don't do anything back, but we are just able to get them to break, which was, I almost got stuck there. In this, well, I guess we're going to the next turn, but the rest of the combat's over here. The Electoral Cav guy actually ends up getting killed by the Heath Hunters. They turn to look at the cart. This is why I actually ran off the board. We fought that combat first. And then the heavy infantry have no problem killing the giant. They just wall up on him with strength 5 and hatred and battle focus. It was brutal. He was not meant to fight them. So going into Sylvan Elves, they turn 5. But these thicket beasts charge my prelate, and that's pretty much about it. My opponent only has the Heath Hunters on the left side of the board, and the right side he's actually got quite a bit of stuff still. We'll see how we're going to deal with that. We go into our shooting. He kills some heavy infantry over here. We go into combat. Issue a duel with my prelate. He accepts with his BSB. This is also shooting, actually. I lose a wound on one wound on the Knights of Sun Griffin. Oh wow, totally skipped that combat. So this is a good time to go. So we go into this combat. His Thicket Shepherd does 2 wounds to me. I strike back and I do 2 wounds to him actually with my Grant weapon. So I was pretty pleased with that. And then again, I skipped this whole turn to charge. So and then I stuck actually. So incredibly, this prelate stuck on a 4. He did 2 wounds to me, I did 2 wounds to him. He had a charge and a BSB. So the prelate sticks miraculously, and I decide that it's time to bring the pain. So I charge the Inquisitor in, I charge the Knights of the Sun Griffin in, and I don't charge the Flagellants in. I held them back, but actually, you know what? I feel like I forgot to take a frenzy check. They probably should have gotten in that combat. That's my fault, actually. And then we go into the magic phase. The first thing I throw is a bound perception of strength with 2 dice. My opponent fails it on a 1 and a 2. And then I'm also able to get the normal perception of strength off. My wizards come back on the battlefield, and he's just able to reach. He's actually just able to reach the prelate on foot, because I get rid of one of the wounds on my prelate. So my goal here, I really wanted to kill his Thicket Shepherd because I need to do that to break the unit. But it's somewhat unlikely. I debated about giving myself flaming attacks. I debated about what to do. But ultimately, I just wasn't sure. In hindsight, I'm regretting actually charging the Knights of the Sun Griffin. You'll see why. Because we're going to combat, and the Thicket Shepherd takes another wound, but he's still alive. Everyone else rolls pretty poorly. I think my Inquisitor might do 2 wounds. I think the Knights of the Sun Griffin maybe do a wound. Relatively poor everywhere else. So they're still alive, and I have a flank offered to those Dryads, unfortunately. So, my opponent's turn 5. It seems like it's turn 6. I feel like the way I was counting, it seems like it's turn 6. But I know we played on the turn after this. So I don't know if we played too many turns or not. He charges the Dryads into the flank of the Knights of Sun Griffin. I reformed the Knights of Sun Griffin so I could get 1 knight on the flank just in case he rolls poopy and I'm still alive. I can get an extra stomp and everything. And he also has a charge with the Heath Hunters on my wizard. I couldn't avoid it. I tried to toss a magic missile at them, but he stopped it. And I moved up my steam tank to possibly be able to save him on the last turn. This combat goes okay. He does a wound to me. I do a wound to him, and I'm able to stick on an 8, which was good. In this combat, I want to say he does 3 wounds to the Knights of Sun Griffin. He doesn't do anything to my characters. My Prelate kills his Thicket Shepherd. But again, my Inquisitor just rolled badly. My Knights of the Sun Griffin don't do anything to the Thicket Beast, and they only do 1 wound to the Dryads. And I want to say we just lose combat by... I want to say we lose it by like 4. Because he's got 3 wounds to my 2 wounds. Actually, no, I want to say the Inquisitor didn't do any wounds. I want to say the 2 wounds were 1 wound to the Thicket Shepherd, 1 wound, I want to say from a stomp, to the Dryads. And that's it. And he's got a charge and a flank and a big flank in a rank. So yeah, we lost by 4 everywhere, and everyone flees, unfortunately. Couldn't get any of the units to stick in there. So he makes everything flee from the thicket shepherds, or from the thicket beasts. The prelate doesn't get run down because nothing chases him. The Inquisitor gets chased by the thicket shepherds and is killed. And the Knights of the Sun Griffin, who are chased by the Dryads, get away. So this is what it looks like. And the thicket beasts do get into the flank of the flagellants. So on my last turn, I actually tried to charge these light infantry into the flank of the thicket beasts just to hold them up. They fail and they take like 8 DTs, but they don't panic, so that was random. I got Flux card 5, but I have absolutely no magic I can do. I really just make sure that I win this combat over here, and I do. And he kills the flagellants with his thicket beasts. And on it, also my prelate fled during my last turn. And on the last turn of the game, which this feels like this might have been an extra turn actually, I don't know. My opponent charges the Knights of Sun Griffin, who flee. He charges with the thick beasts. He fails to be able to charge anywhere else. They do end up catching the Knights of the Sun Griffin, and they turn like that. But it's the end of the game, and I'm in my opponent's deployment zone, and this is where it ends. This game ends up being a 19-1 victory for the Empire of Sonnstahl with the objective of breakthrough. It was a fun game. I felt like it was a little bit tight at the beginning, and it just sort of really pulled out for the Empire in a pretty big way. My opponent and I both laughed. We wanted to try Giants again. We thought, oh, that'd be fun. They had almost zero contribute to this game. In that my giant, he did like a wound to the Eagle King, and he died the second round of combat. He didn't get to do any shooting. His shooting whipped. My opponent, I think he shot 3 times with his bow, and he just kept missing every time, which I want to say it's only like a 4-up bow. So, I mean, if it's not close range, it's a little tough for him to hit. So, we definitely want to try playing with some more giants. I like the giant supplement. I think it's really fun. It's interesting. Just gotta kind of find a way to not necessarily make it work, but have fun with it. So, everyone, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this battle report, and be seeing you soon with another 9th Age battle report.